Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this latest episode of Startups Unedited. We're all aware of the impact that AI has had on our planet, on our species, and on things that we have not seen yet. And so today we're going to be diving into the topic around AEO and GEO with Devin Pickell, who is the founder of Do I Need SEO?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad I got that one right. And one of the cool things about what you're doing is, and we'll dive into your background, but just for the folks out there, you have done SEO, you've been a B2B marketer at some of the hottest B2B tech companies on earth. And then you've really found a great niche helping organizations create video content and then wrapping it into this much larger search slash AEO geo. Hold on a second. Is it AEO or geo from your perspective? I've heard so many different kind of
Yeah. I,
opinions.
I even because Google and YouTube are more my domains. I say
Yeah.
AIO. AI overviews, AEO, GEO, yeah, SEO, whatever the hell you want to call it. But yeah, it's information retrieval is what it boils down to.
Awesome. Well, why don't you tell folks about kind of quickly about your background? How did you get into this crazy world of AIO?
Yeah, I'll throw it all the way back to the beginning. So I came up in like the journalistic route, which I think a lot of folks in our space do. So a lot of writing, very, very way before the days of generative AI. But I was always curious, my stuff was ranking well, and I paired with the SEO team back in my days at g2.com. I wanted to know like the inner workings, the technicalities around why my stuff was ranking. And so that's really like my first come up in SEO. Fast forward a couple years after that, I have some writing, some content generation, SEO chops. I go to a company called Nextiva. They're one of the largest VoIP providers in the world right now. And I pair up with a guy you and I are both familiar with,
Yeah.
Gaetano.
Shout out to G.
Shout out to G. And listen, we were like crushing all of our metrics, and we had an awesome YouTube channel at the time and a
Mhm.
very talented video in-house video production. They just need a little bit direction, and I took that on as a side project and really learned how like video and SEO and content we're all sort of kind of in the same sphere, and
Mhm.
that's yeah, worked with them on everything from topic generation, scripts, thumbnail ideas, really the behind the scenes of what makes a great YouTube channel. And that was my first dose of YouTube, of YouTube SEO, and I wanted more. And from every company I worked at after that, I kind of took a little bit of the pieces I learned at Nextiva and applied it there, and now apply it as a founder.
Awesome. Let's talk about YouTube's role in this whole world, right? Why has it become one of the most important sources? And I just got to say, just kind of for the folks out there, I always kind of understood that YouTube was, at least at the time, I think, I don't know if things have changed, but for many, many years, YouTube was the second largest search engine on planet Earth. And so it made sense from that perspective to create content, but now it's even much bigger. Why has YouTube become one of the most important sources, especially as we think about AI generated answers and citations?
Yeah, no, you're right. It is the second largest search engine out there, and people don't really think about it as a search engine. More of they think about it as like social media. It is a search engine. It just served in content served in a different format than what us website guys are typically used to. But even when we talk about its role in AIO, AEO, I think it's right behind Reddit in terms of
Mm,
uh, most commonly cited sources in AI answers. Now I know every platform, we've seen every different AI monitoring tool throw out different numbers, but it is consistently behind Reddit in terms of citations. And there's a number of reasons for that that we can dive into, but really, we uh, video is a medium is just boomed in popularity,
Mm.
especially over the last 5 to 10 years. People's attention spans have gotten shorter. No one wants to really read the 5 to 6,000 word blog posts anymore. They want information condensed, either in text format, or they want to watch a video or listen to a podcast during their lunch break. We have to sort of think about the modern day audience member, and what the medium they want their content in.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of the technical aspect of why it's such a powerful citation now, and why it's, you spoke to, like, I think these concepts around, the fact that people's attention spans are lower, people want to consume video. I mean, I rarely read anything like an FAQ or anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's the video? Is there a video? And what I'll actually do is, if I don't find a video, I will grab the topic at hand. Let's say if I'm trying to do research on a specific company, or get some support or whatnot, and then I will put it into YouTube and then look and see if there's any third party folks. So that really resonates with me. But any sort of like technical aspects of why this is important, especially as we think about the way that AI is now using these things as citations.
Yeah, I think this is unique to both Reddit and YouTube. When we see what Gen AI has really done in like the copywriting, the inbound space, content is becoming more of a commodity right now. It's becoming significantly easier to create. You almost need no topic expertise to put out 1,000 blog posts on a topic you have no idea what you're talking about. Whereas, when we think about some of Google's recent algorithm guidelines of wanting to elevate expert voices in spaces, expert opinions, I feel like YouTube and Reddit lend themselves really well to that.
Mm.
Just like you said, when you want to learn more about a topic, maybe get a second opinion, some folks are going to immediately type in the keyword that they would have on the Google search bar, and then follow that up with Reddit. They want to hear opinions from other folks. They want to crowdsource opinions before they make their own decision. The same goes with YouTube. I want to watch a couple videos. Maybe it's a product review on something I'm thinking about buying. YouTube has become a more prominent source along that buying journey. Now, it does make it harder to measure when we talk about attribution.
Mm.
A video could be sourced in AIO, and someone may open up another Google tab, type in, hey, this channel recommended this product to me. Now I want to like visit the site directly and go purchase it myself. Would the channel get that attribution? Probably not. But
Yeah.
it just goes to show that we want that validation from other sources, and people are more likely to get that validation from a Reddit or from a YouTube.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about kind of the impact of YouTube on the funnel or buyer's journey. I think you spoke to a part of it. So are we saying that folks are going to go to YouTube, or potentially, right? Certainly I spoke to that behavior myself a second ago. Search for a specific topic, watch a video, look for some recommendations, these sort of things, and then open up another tab. So are we saying that it's driving these brand searches?
Yeah. YouTube is huge with brand searches, especially now it being cited so often in AIO. We know, it's gone from, wanting to be ranking number one for, event management software, to now be wanting to be cited verbatim your brand name, and you get that through being an authoritative channel on YouTube, an authoritative reference from Reddit. And it does make the journey a little messier. A couple ways I've been able to solve for that at companies I've worked with. One of them, we use Gong as like is our call log transcription, and it has come up several times. Hey, I'm a long time subscriber to your guys' YouTube channel. I love the content you guys been putting out. That's come verbatim from customer calls. And then another great way is the typical, how'd you hear about us on a demo form,
Mhm.
which we've also seen with a separate channel. People, getting people to raise their hands and say, I'm a big fan of your content. I watch your stuff a lot, is a good way to drive that direct attribution to
Mm.
YouTube. Because let's be honest, unless, I operate in the B2B, the software space, these are longer buying journeys. They're more intricate than say like, a makeup influencer who is able to get affiliate revenue directly through YouTube,
Yeah.
uh, or like ad revenue through their YouTube videos as well. It's a little bit different in B2B.
Yeah. That's a really great point where you might also go, like my wife loves to consume content around like fashion
Yeah.
and makeup and stuff. Apparently there's a huge sort of community around
Oh
that
yeah.
type of content. But I think one of the things that incentivizes her to watch these, and she does this a lot on Instagram and YouTube, is what you mentioned, these referral links or these codes, right, that are uniquely embedded within the video description, right? Or you can click through as well. And so they'll be able to actually like take that direct action in real time, right? And it's not this like multiple stakeholder long sales cycle sales motion that we see in B2B. With
Yeah.
that in mind, well, potentially, right? She might have to, if it's a big, transaction, she might ask me. But
Right.
how do we sort of figure out? I know you talked about the attribution or like earlier, but how do you actually start to have that strategic conversation with your CMO, or if you're a CMO listening to this podcast and you now have to pitch this to the board or to your CEO, and you have to explain that there's essentially this dark funnel, right? We started to see a lot of that stuff. It reminds me of what we saw on LinkedIn, right? And with all the kind of activity coming from LinkedIn and that dark social stuff, how do we have that discussion? What have you seen, or how have you coached your clients to be able to actually get everyone to buy in? That's maybe higher level and thinking about attribution.
Yeah, yeah. Another way, uh, like you mentioned, link in the description another great way to attribute as well. We've even built landing pages you could only access via YouTube description. Forget
Mm,
the whole UTM, a link that's long as hell. Like you could build in direct pages that can only be accessible via YouTube description. But more importantly, if you're trying to make that case, and listen, I'm not going to say like YouTube or SEO is the silver bullet for everyone. And it's ironic because my brand is Do I Need SEO? And I've been on calls with folks. I'm like, you actually don't need SEO. But there are certain communities that live and breathe on YouTube. And I know tools, I believe, SparkToro is a great tool at showing you areas where your audience lives.
mhm.
Um, be
Yeah,
that,
shout out to Rand
yeah,
Fishkin
shout
from
out
that
to
crew.
Rand.
Yeah,
There are all
Rand's
sorts of
awesome.
forums. Maybe engineers flock to a certain forum versus event marketers flock to
Mm,
different social media. So I think uh, making sure you come well equipped with research. Something I like to show is like, hey, listen. So for an example, I've been talking about events. One of our clients, Sugo, they're in the event management space. Um, there was the typical search experience is very saturated. You have Splash, VFairs,
yeah.
Cvent, Eventbrite, all big brands who are eating up typical search. Uh, a lot of those companies are not building on YouTube. Uh, some of the highest ranking videos we could see are from 2022, 2023. There's a lot of, when you look at search results, look for a thing called a video carousel. That's a type of featured snippets. So when you basically type in a how-to search, you're gonna, amongst the top ranking results are gonna be YouTube videos. So that again shows us, Google's hinting to us, with YouTube
Mhm.
being a Google property, hey, you might want to start making some videos on this. I was piecing it together. I'm like, there are a lot of like old legacy videos, some even before the Gen AI days that are still top rankers. So we've started to recreate some of these topics, but in a modern format. We've done a whole like the face of the channel, this guy named Jake. Hey, I'm Jake from Swoogo. We make sure to drill that into people's heads, because we know that people are more receptive to faces on channels, the hosts, than just like graphic videos. So when you find those opportunities and you bring fresh content to a medium that's been largely neglected by the rest of the space, you start to carve out your own little nook. And we've been showing up more and more. It seems like every day. I've even shared this on a recent LinkedIn post, that we're just taking up lots of real estate, be it the top YouTube video. We're referencing AIO because AIO also pulls from video transcripts now. We're referenced 3 times before you even get to the first organic result.
Amazing. You mentioned Reddit and YouTube. How do they work together? Like, are you, or do they, or they were just like separate channels, but just maybe like a great starting point for folks to start to kind of break through the noise?
Yeah, Reddit's a tough nut to crack. They thrive on authentic conversations. You don't even really need to be an expert. It's really just to get the conversation going. I'm sure it'll be like, hey guys, I'm a small business. What's an affordable CRM under $150 a month? I have this many contacts. Very specific, long tail questions that may not show up in a typical SEO tool, but you see Reddit, and then there's been conversations going on for 6 months. The thread is like 150 different folks chiming in. That's the gold mine you want to rank in, and that's been a tougher nut to crack, admittedly, for me. I know YouTube, which is more my bag. Like I mentioned earlier, put the face of your CEO, your CTO, your CMO. This is something I'm doing with a brand called CoinFlow. With their CEO and their CTO are both amazing subject matter experts. They're on calls all day. So what's another, 15, 30-minute film sesh in Chicago where we can get their thoughts out on camera, and we could display it in really bite-sized video format, to show that, hey, we know what we're talking about. We're not always like plugging our product. We're really just educating the audience via video is a medium. And YouTube is a phenomenal way to host that, and it's been fun. We're starting from like the very a foundational YouTube channel, building out our playlist, showing up every month, and putting out content on a consistent basis, and it's starting to pay off.
Awesome. All right. So for the folks out there, the CMOs, the CEOs who are trying to learn about this, if you had to give a couple tips around getting started, right? Because to your point, B2B is now catching up. They're out there sort of evangelizing to organizations, folks like yourself, that you need to double down. I'm certainly bought in, and have been doing versions of this for a couple of years now. But if you had to describe to a CEO, to a CMO, some of these sort of early tactics to get started, to start to get your YouTube content to be picked up by these engines, these LLMs, any sort of like low hanging fruit. And again, the context is they're just getting started. They might have a channel set up, but maybe, there's no videos, or there's like one or something, right?
Yeah, it all starts with the idea. Now there's so many awesome transcription tools out here. One of the first things I like to do is, I would love to listen in on some sales calls, take some transcripts from customers, happy customers, mad customers. These guys are in their sales teams are in on calls all day long. There's a mountain of structured data living there that can be easily turned into YouTube and YouTube video ideas. And listen, we all have access to Claude, ChatGPT. These are phenomenal ways to turn those transcripts into top of funnel video ideas. I always like to start at the top of the funnel, We can have our flagship videos, which now that I'm talking about it, may actually be easier to start for a CMO or a CEO. First, tell us about our product. Those first couple of videos, what is product? How does product work? What are some use cases for product? And then, yeah, use your LLMs to generate top of funnel video ideas based on real transcripts, real conversations that your business is having with customers. Are these going to be topics that are the sexiest in SEO tools? Maybe, maybe not. But if I'm being completely honest, I find myself moving further away from traditional SEO tools these days. I find the data kind of lags, and there's a lot of gold mine in your own data that you're not really tapping. So yes, start with that. Real conversations your business is having. Give me 10 to 15 how-to topics based on the transcript I had with one of our whales. All right, from here on out, I want you to think about we could do some really lo-fi video editing. Honestly, there's a lot of great folks who are using Descript on Fiverr, or Upwork. Descript is a pretty solid tool just for laying out your chapters for you, throwing in some basic transitions, keeping people engaged. Think about keeping your videos, 3 to 6 minutes if we're talking like top of funnel. And then it gets down to thumbnails. Thumbnails are super important.
Yeah.
It's really how people like kick in the door before they even get to your video. Thumbnails is a loaded topic. Mr. Beast wrote a research report on how to structure thumbnails and A/B testing and all that. Highly recommend checking that out. And then again, making the metadata itself, titles, meta description, timestamps should be keyword rich. When we talk about like a web page or a blog post, we like to limit the metadata to a specific character amount. I say, go as broad as you need to inside the YouTube meta description. It's just more ways to provide context to these search engines, and the closed captions themselves will also be great ways for AIO to be able to pull in your videos and its answers.
Awesome. Question: if an organization decides to ignore YouTube in this AI world, what are they risking?
They're risking irrelevance. Content is, again, becoming easier to create. I only imagine what video is going to look like in the next 3 to 5 years. We've seen, it looks like pretty fugazi, I would say, the current world of video generation.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the next, podcasting video or next up on the AI agenda of how can we automate as much of this as possible. But again, I'm gonna stick to my guns and say, where Reddit and YouTube really stand out are their reliance on authoritative hosts. And same with podcasts. Podcasts go the same way. People want to hear real insights from real people.
From real people, yeah.
Yep. And YouTube has sort of built its moat around that. And I think if you are not in that conversation, as we know, the Google search we know today is going to be totally different in a couple years. I'm foreseeing it being more visual. We may even see more of like a Pinterest style type of search. There's gonna be images, there's gonna be videos, there's gonna be ads that are disguised as videos throughout the organic SERP. You're not gonna want to miss out on that conversation. I think, and saying this, the guy who started in the world of like journalism and inbound and copywriting, moving away from that comfort zone of living in a text-based world and realizing like, our CEO's got some awesome like nuggets to say. Let's get him out there, and maybe not even just YouTube alone. Like we talk about LinkedIn, X.
LinkedIn, yeah.
There are ways to repurpose video across several different channels. But yeah, people want to hear from you. Your customers want to hear from you. Your prospects want to hear from you. It's all part of the buying journey now. which is significantly more complex than just landing on a website because you ranked #1 in organic search.
Yeah. Yeah. For those folks out there, these leaders, these executives who are like, oh, I don't want to get in front of the camera. Sorry. Those days are, I think they're just over, especially with AI, to your point, that can do so many text-based things, right? Like, I think our humanity is our moat, right?
Mhm.
Our personal brands, like our ability to be authentic and real and stand up for something, right? I was driving home last night from having dinner. I was telling you about that
Mhm.
that executive that I had dinner with last night, and there was an ad, which I'm trying to remember what the product was. I don't remember. I don't remember what the product was, but I do remember that the product, or the ad, I should say, in the organization stood for something. It was like they had this kind of moral perspective, right, on the way that they wanted to run their organization, and it came out in the ad, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and it was very, very interesting. I really wish I remember the actual product, but I do remember. If I hear it again, it'll like, kind of turn the light on. But I do remember, like, that was so unique that that they had a perspective. And so the point is that I think that's a very human thing. I don't think, especially within B2B, and it was a B2B ad. Um, we didn't think about those things, right? I know that in consumer products, we've talked about these narratives, and we spend a lot of time on the creative side.
Mhm.
I think we're starting to see that now happen. Like, Gong has done a great job of that for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Kind of having a perspective on the market, and having kind of a unique brand. And I think we're starting to see that now in B2B. And I would argue that it's actually, like, for me, critical, right?
Yeah.
To building a moat and standing out. And video is just, for the folks out there, like, video is just one of the best ways to communicate an authentic voice. There's just no other way to do it. I remember doing some experiments years ago around an animated video explainer versus a live action talking head. And it was like night and day.
Yeah.
Like, people just really resonated, and the views and the consumption of that content, when you had a human speaking,
Yeah.
outperformed the animated stuff by far. So it just
It
tells you, right?
in this, yeah, no, exactly. So, another client of ours, Balsamic, they've were, I guess, your dad's wireframing tool 15 years ago, have reinvented themselves in a lot of ways by integrating AI like meaningfully in their product, adding some like prototypes, tooling onto it as well. And some of the best videos in the last year have been like just straight up live demos, really lo-fi production. And I think production value as well is something, it has its purpose for sure. But if you're starting out, like the barrier to entry on YouTube is actually a lot lower than I think people realize.
Mm.
I've mentioned before, there's Capsule to Script, a lot of AI editing tools, pretty cheap talent on Fiverr and Upwork. If you're looking just for, hey, organize these chapters for me, give me some basic zooms and cuts, and then like an end card. That's really all you need. And then you can get more into like the live demos, the more longer form content as you've built out a publishing cadence, you get more comfortable on camera. But the barrier to entry is actually, I think, a lot lower than CMOs and CEOs realize. And AI is only going to continue to make um, uh, putting out these videos actually
Yeah.
a lot easier. But I don't want folks to rely on AI to fully outsource their creative for it. I know like recent studies have even shown like Gen Z has had the most adverse reaction to witnessing like AI videos and AI images. So, as that generation gets older, more into the workforce, if you are putting out AI slop as your primary source of content, it's going to have elicit a negative reaction in the market. People want to see folks like us on the camera having real conversations. So,
Yeah. You said something earlier that I thought was super interesting. And I think one of the upsides of of AI is that the fact that you used to have to rely on SEO or insight tools, right, to be able to understand certain, topics and things like that that were important. And now you can, to your point, grab a gong call or whatever tool you're using and transcribe that and then dig into what was actually said by your customers, good or bad, right? And be able to learn from that, right? And that's just a set of first party insight around that, that first party data that you just weren't able to do, right, in the past, and in an easy way. That is, I mean, you just drop that into Claude and ask it for, for these insights. And so, that was really, really powerful. um, for the folks out there, like, that is accessible to you
Mhm.
right now. The other thing that you mentioned was kind of the evolution of AI as it relates to creating video. I found myself, and I don't know what generation I am. 44, so am I Gen whatever, Gen
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but I had this adverse, reaction to finding out that one of these Instagram accounts that I followed and I frankly enjoyed was not a real human.
Wow.
It was like this, like, philosophical spiritual monk. I
Mhm.
don't know if you saw that. It
No,
was, yeah.
I've
So
been duped a couple times though on Instagram.
yeah, so I'm like, oh, this is really good, because I read a lot on spirituality and
Mhm.
philosophy and etc. And I was pissed. I was like, and I don't know why. Like, the insights were still good. They were still in line with a lot of the old ancient sort of history that I
Yeah.
read and philosophical texts and so on. But the fact that it wasn't a human, I was just pissed, and I think I unfollowed it.
Yeah,
The
it betrays your trust in a way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You've built in your mind this, the, concept of this person and what you think about them and their, relatability, and for it all to be AI driven fake in a sense. Yes, it is pulling from other sources and insights, but yeah, all it takes is that one time, like you said, for
Yeah.
the trust to be betrayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was also selling like an ebook and e-course or something. And somehow
Yeah.
it was, I ended up hearing about it through some other, other sources, and it was generating like 100 grand a month or something in
Wow.
subscriptions to this thing. And it was like, I mean, it wasn't a fraud. I, it was
Yeah.
just not a human, right? And I was hoping it was this wise, like, Indian or Asian
Yeah.
monk, who sitting there and wherever, and I was like, oh, to know that it wasn't real. Again, disappointing. So I think, to your point, what is the future, right? Like, are we going to lean in? Like, are we going to feel better if it is something that they're upfront about? Like, oh, it's your AI monk who's trained on like the knowledge base of Buddhism or whatever, right? Whatever,
Yeah.
in this scenario. Would I have felt better? Maybe, because sometimes I jump on ChatGPT and I'll have a very philosophical conversation, and there's no expectation it's a real human, obviously, right?
Right. You
But I
know
know,
that you've consented to a discussion
yeah,
with the LLM as
with the
opposed to it
LLM,
being
yeah,
sold. Yeah.
yeah, and I understand that the LLM has access to like all this information, so I was like, okay, cool. So it's a very interesting sort of perspective, right? And paradigm to think through, which is like, okay, well, are we okay with that? If it's upfront and and transparent, maybe, right? And
Yeah.
so, and there may be certain use cases. We've talked in B2B a lot about having these AI salespeople, right?
Yeah.
These avatars. You can go to the website, ask it questions, maybe even have the avatar do a demo. And initially I had a little resistance because, as a former salesperson, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want that. And I was like, are there scenarios? Maybe, yeah, maybe there are scenarios. Maybe I will go through a whole sales motion if I'm, if I'm, again, if they're transparent and I know I'm speaking to an agent that has full expertise and understanding of the offering.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are moments for it. We see brands like Kalshi is a great example. They're very outwardly about their AI ads, AI commercials, everything from I think like the Super Bowl had a couple of them to YouTube ads. Um, I think it has stemmed from a lot of what you see on their X account. They have like a meme culture built around the business,
Mm,
and I think memes lend itself really well to AI generation. I think people know that it's a joke and it's a cheap form of content, and that can play well into a brand if that's kind of like a vertical of yours. Maybe if when you're in like the uh, a very serious industry and you understand your audience may not react well to that, maybe avoid it. But there are definitely areas in B2B where AI generation can lend itself well.
mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Devin, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom. We all have to embrace YouTube, folks. You've got to double down on YouTube. I mean, hopefully, you've gotten kind of a high level understanding of why it's critical. But if you haven't looked at the stats, like take a look at the stats, understand that most of humanity, it seems like, at this moment in time, is engaging in the LLM revolution. They're
Mhm.
using ChatGPT, they're using Claude, they're using Perplexity. There's it looks like new ones popping up also, and those are certainly the most prominent. I know Gemini, right, is
Yeah.
gaining traction as well. And I mean, who owns Gemini? Google,
Google.
right? Who owns YouTube? Google. They're just going to very logically promote their content as they always have in the traditional search context, right? So promoting YouTube, that is. And so double down on YouTube. If you need to ask someone some advice or hire an expert, Devin, what are the best channels to reach you if folks want to get in contact?
Yeah, I'm active on LinkedIn like every day. So it's / Devin Devin hyphen Pickell Pickell. I'm also I'll plug my website, do I need SEO.com, active there as well, and always happy to just take some chats. I speak to my brand a lot as well. I'll straight up tell you if uh don't need SEO, maybe you need to build on a different channel or a different space where your audience
Mhm.
lives more. But yeah, you could find me there. And just remember, like, search is only getting more and more visual, and we want to see your face pop up.
Awesome. Well, have a great day. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom around this AEO, was it AIO, AI
AIO,
search
yeah.
revolution, whatever it is. And until next time,
Awesome. Thank you, George, for having me.
thank you.